When something takes on such a familiar pattern, then there is something in lockstep. There is something embedded. There is something guiding and leading. It's every step of the way. This fella had 5 children, all 5 of them divorced. Look at the Kennedys. This man's supposed to be the richest, most wealthy man, wanted power. He too was involved in witchcraft. One son after the other, brutally murdered. Another son destroyed his life by killing a woman in a wreck. A daughter died early. And they call it the Kennedy curse. These generational curses take place. What happens then when we are involved in a generational curse? What happens then whenever demon spirits are involved in our lives to destroy, to wreck? 5 family members in this group, all 5 of them divorced. 3 of them dies early. They have babies. They have 3 children. The 3 children then of that family all ends in divorce. 2 of them dies from unnatural causes. That bunch, before they died, had a family. There was 4 in it. All 4 of them got married. All 4 of them got divorced. 2 of them died. It's a familiar pattern that's taken place. It is a generational curse. Somebody says, I ain't going to be cursed. I'm not cursed. Well, you see, if there is a generational pattern behind you to where your family is falling in the same line, generation after generation, yes, there is a generational curse upon you. Each family becoming familiar with the way their family works. Then they pass that familiarity down to the next family. Then they pass it down to the next family. Somebody, somewhere along the way, in those homes, in those families, somebody has got to break that pattern. And if they don't, the pattern continues on and on. So I wrote down a couple things here. Family curses and generational curses, well-known and long-form associations. How familiar are you with your family? How familiar are you with your childhood? Now, how familiar is your family with you? Do you realize that whatever you are now making familiar to your children is what they are going to be? What are you making familiar to your family? Are you making familiar to your family right now, your sons, your daughters? Are you making familiar right now with them? Drug addiction, disorder, discord. What about your nature? What are you teaching? What are they seeing in you every day? What are you, not what have you been familiarized with, you know. But now more important, you. What are you familiarizing your children to and with? Do they see you take dope constantly? Oh, it's legal. Do you know what they're going to do? They're going to take dope. What are you doing? Are you teaching your children that you depend on the government every week, every month for a check or a government to feed the family? Everybody understands that there's problems that comes along and we need a little help. But when the help is perpetual and never ending, you are now familiarizing your children with poverty. This is how it works. You look to the government. This is how it works. You go to the government every month and you get money for food from the government. There is no man in the house. There is no daddy in the house. There is no husband in the house. So are they now familiar with the fact that you raise and you are raised, and it does not matter if you have a daddy in the house or not? You have the government, of which guarantees you perpetual generational poverty, because they didn't design the system to get you out of it. They didn't design the system to get your family out of it. They designed the system to keep you entrenched and locked into it, family after family, so that they can get your vote. When you go home, Google up a picture of a rat with his head in a rat trap and a piece of cheese still there. And then let yourself be aware that's what the government trap is. To dangle some cheese out, to snap your neck. Generation after generation after generation. Poverty after poverty after poverty. Some has said, and accurately so, that 80% of poverty is learned. You become familiar with it. It's not the work of God. Nowhere do you find the work of God. As we taught in the personal responsibility series, it was plainly stated and plainly laid out that we are responsible for that which is thine own. And if you want to raise family members who are productive, providing, if you want to raise family members who's able to get themselves out, you got to familiarize them with a work ethic. And that you depend upon nobody but yourself. And you don't run around getting free stuff when you have an able body. You teach them that. Other than that, you let the rat trap setters teach them. And it benefits the rat trap setters for them to remain in poverty generation after generation after generation. Somebody has to break the curse. What habits and lifestyles are you familiarizing your family to? What are you teaching them? What are you showing them in areas that you don't even realize you're showing them? What is your lifestyle, your manner of life? They're learning from you. They have nothing else to learn from. They're watching you. Is there demonic activity in your life? Do you think that it's not showing in certain areas? Certainly it is. Poor fathers, poor mothers, breed poor fathers and poor mothers. That's a fact. That's a fact. The most of the people molested came from families of which they were molested in. That's a fact. Most of the people that's in poverty came from a family that was in poverty. That's a fact. Most of the men who beat their wives physically with their fist came from a family where their daddy beat their mother with his fist. That's a fact. Any personality trait that is destructive, 99.9% of the chance is they learned it and became familiar with it by and from their families. So how do I break it? You break it very simply, brothers and sisters, by prayer and by labor. And we'll close with this. You break the generational curses by prayer and by labor. You see, the labor is never taken out of this. God don't put us in God bubbles and float us around. 90% of everything you do in your life is for you to do. And if you don't do it, God will let you pay the consequences for failing. The whole world shows us that. The whole Bible shows us that. God does what you can't do. God helps you when you help yourself. God moves to you when you move to Him. That's the way that it works. How do we break these curses? First, we do it with prayer. We recognize through prayer that we are in fact under a curse. Generation after generation, we have all done and we are all doing the same thing in this family line. There is sicknesses that has come down through our family as far as we can remember. The same sicknesses repeated over and over and over and over and over. You say, well, it's family line and it can't be broke. Sure, it can be broke. Is it a curse? Curse don't mean you a nasty demon. Is it a curse? Is it a blessing? Is what you are fighting, is what you are dealing with, is the sorrow of which you're facing, is it blessing? If it ain't blessing, it's a curse. No good thing, no good thing is a curse. No bad thing is a blessing. If the curse is there, what do you do to break it? You first acknowledge that it's there, and then you understand that this is a problem, and we have passed this down to our family members because it is familiar to me. That means it's locked into my mind. It means it's locked into my thinking. So in order for me to break this curse, I have to change the way I think. That's not easy, brothers and sisters. Once you've been on the couch and eating potatoes for 6 years, it ain't easy to get in your brain. Get up and run now. Everything in you fights against it. It's not familiar territory to you anymore, to your mind, to your body. And your body wars against it. The familiar paths is oftentimes what we call the ruts. The rut is an open grave, a grave with two open ends. And we're familiar with it. That's the reason we stay in the rut. The only thing comfortable about it is that we're familiar with it. The most uncomfortable thing in this world is to have to climb out, get on new ground, start new things. It's easier just to walk through the stuff that we already have ingrained in us and not learn new things. And in order to learn to break a curse, it has now been set in your family, your genes, your mind, that way of life that you are familiar with on a subconscious level, that subconsciously you just do it. It's just easy. It's just what you do. You have to change that. We're not going to do any longer as we have done. You have to understand that I have to think my way through this. I have to, with my mind, be willing to face and make changes. I have to put a better foot forward. If I am going to get my children out of poverty, I may have to take the first step, so uncomfortable as to turn the food stamps back in and say, I'm fixing to live or die with you. Now you think that's overshooting? No, ma'am. No, sir, it's not overshooting it. There's got to be bold steps taken sometimes in our lives. There's got to be acts of unconditional faith on our part sometime. If you are connected to God and not using and abusing Him and His power, if you are truly connected to Him, the seed of the righteous shall never be hungry or beg for bread. This is not for my comfort. This is not for my ease. This is generation after generation after generation of my family has been locked in this same poverty continually. And I'm fixing to break it. Or I'm fixing to die, one or the other. Now, if God is not motivated by that kind of faith, He ain't motivated by nothing. Live or die, I will not pass this down to another child. If they see me die, they're going to see me struggling and fighting, and at least there will be respect in their hearts. But I'm not sending, I'm not taking, I'm not bearing another generation of my seed and my family beneath the graves of poverty. So with your help, that's prayer. Father, I'm fixing to make a move. And I did this. We did this. Oh, but you know, we didn't have nothing. When we sent them back, $346. When we sent them back, we didn't have nothing. Raining and cold. For weeks, we ate nothing. Nothing but cinnamon toast. For weeks. And then the old devil sent the food stamps back to us. Sister Kitty said it might be the Lord. He said, for real? She said it could be the Lord. And I said, no, this ain't the Lord. And I called the food stamp people up. I said, we told y'all not to send them to us no more. And a little angry because it was temptation. Now, I see some pork chops myself. And I said, I'm sending them back to you. Do not send them to us again. We've been 2-3 weeks eating. No, you think I'm exaggerating? Drinking water and eating cinnamon toast, period. I told her that day that we turned them in, the words I spoke to my wife was, I have now married him. And if he can't feed me, I want to know as fast as possible. Those was the words I said. The least I could expect would be to be fed by him. I was a 28-inch waist then, 36 today. Let the belly do the talking. No, at some point, you got to make the change. I told y'all, we drove all the way from Waynesboro just to sit in the Holiday Inn, to look at the chandeliers, to see something different than what I'd been raised in. To make my brain see something different. To eat at the Holiday Inn as if it was the greatest motel in the world. It was the greatest I knew of. It was light years up above where I was at. And so we'd come down here and for just 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, just sit in that little area in there where all the nice stuff was, and I need to see this, I need to see this, I need to see this. I need to get my brain out of what it's been in, what it was raised in, where it's been. I need to see this. We're going to eat, not at McDonald's. We're going to go into the restaurant at the Holiday Inn. We're going to eat at the Holiday Inn. That was the biggest thing in the world to me, in my mind at that time. And I'm going to familiarize myself now with new things, because I ain't staying the same. Live or die. Cinnamon toast a week, 2 weeks. Cinnamon toast 3 weeks. And I could tell you stories where God moved off of that same set of events. My purpose is there's labor in this. For you to break the curses, there's labor. Your belly may have to growl. Your comfort zone will have to be shaken. You will have to step out on ground that you're not familiar with. You will have to move in areas that you are not at all comfortable. But you cannot possibly expect a change in your life, in your children's life, or the generations that's coming from you. You cannot expect a change in them if there is not one in you. Period. And what gives you the ability to face those changes and fight with those changes and overcome the desires not to change is the prayer and the assurance that God will be there. And the fact that you did survive and you will survive, and things will start happening and doors will start opening. If it is in fact a demon spirit, then the Bible tells us in Matthew 18:18, for whatsoever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. You must be, to fight these devils, you must be a new creature in Christ Jesus. You must be born again. You become the seed of God then by His Word. You then possess and become heirs and joint heirs with Jesus Christ. You then possess the power of Christ to heal the sick, to cast out devils, to raise the dead. You possess the power now to speak to demons and bind them. Whatsoever you bind. See, it never starts with God. God follows you. If you will draw nigh unto me, then I will draw nigh unto thee. Move toward me, and I will come to you. You gotta move.